Hello, hi, what's up? I read so many books last month, which, again, I thought I was in a reading slump and wouldn't be expecting so many, but there's loads of them, so let's just jump right in. First off, I shall once more start with the ones that I don't have physical copies of at the moment. So first off, we have The Space Between by Meg Grehan. This is a piece of Irish YA in verse, and it's basically about this girl who has some sort of anxiety disorder, I can only assume. Or I'm guessing somewhere in the agoraphobia, something area, because she's terrified of life and leaving her house specifically, and she's kind of spiraling. She's not exactly in a great place when we first start off seeing her, and then this good old doggo comes to her window or something, and they form a relationship, and then this girl, the doggo's owner, comes into the picture, and they kind of fall in love or something. It's so soft, and it's so gay, and it's the quality content we deserve. I don't know, I'm sure someone I trust read it and recommended it, and I was like, that sounds good. So I read it, and I really loved it. I'm pretty sure its own voices both in the sexuality department and the mental illness, but don't quote me on it. I'm possibly wrong, so yes. Anyway, would recommend it. If you're into the whole verse kind of thing, it's really good. And then, I know this was one of the books that HarperCollins was promoting at their big book bonanza, whatever that happened, and it just spoke to me on a spiritual level. It's called Bad Nana, Older Not Wiser. It was written by Sophie Hen. It's a beginner reader type story about this grandmother who's really fabulous and up to no good, and it's through her granddaughter's perspective, and I love the artwork, and the story itself is very heartwarming. I think Bad Nana is an icon throughout all of literature and not just children's. I think she's fabulous. Her fashion style is amazing, and yes, I really loved Bad Nana. Okay, sue me. Use of color and the artwork, it's just so bright and in your face and beautiful. I was touched. And I also read this crossover comic graphic novel type thing that's Lumberjanes and Gotham Academy, which are two of my absolute favorite series, so I really thoroughly enjoyed that. But I will say, I think that the two series have super different vibes. I guess at the core they're kind of familiar and similar, but aesthetically speaking, Lumberjanes is very bright and saturated and in your face, and then Gotham Academy is more like cool tones as opposed to warm, and it's more kind of a little bit anime-esque, and it's again really dark and a little bit lacking saturation, and I really love both, but this one was very much more Lumberjane-esque, and I'm not sure it worked all the time. It was very hard to tell some of the characters apart at times, but the story, really solid, really weird, but I would expect nothing else from this. And then we embark on all the physical books that I read this month. First of all, I have In the Country We Love by Diane Guerrero. She is an actress. She was a bit of a minor character in Jane the Virgin, but I remember seeing her on social media and seeing interviews and whatnot where she talked about her parents being deported when she was a child. So it's like, you know what, this sounds like a really important story. It sounds very relevant to the social and political climate that we live in. It might not necessarily seem particularly relevant to me all the way in Europe, but I think it's important to get yourself accustomed to stories like these and understand what's going on more in the personable, and you know, it's easy to read about these things happening as numbers, as generalities, but seeing, you know, a particular story like this and diving right into someone's thoughts and experiences, it was so much. It was so much. It's super easy to get into, but it does get really a lot at times, because it's her experience, you know, as a kid dealing with being an illegal immigrant in the States, or rather her family being, because she's a US citizen, and her being the only US citizen in her close family, and it's just her parents being deported and her life after that, because I gave no shits, and so she's been bouncing between family, friends, and then she dealt with a lot after that. And I will put on content warnings for depression and obviously deportation, racism, all that, but also self-harm, which I didn't know going in. So it was a lot. There's suicidal idealization in the book as well. There's just so much. But if you think you could stomach this, it's one of my favorite reads of the year so far, and it's really eye-opening and necessary and raw and visceral, and I just really, really loved it. And then, because obviously I really love cheery stories and making myself happy, I finally read The Power by Naomi Alderman. So I buddy read this with my friend Theo, for the first part at least, because I really liked flying through books and she's taking her time with it. Alas, for the first bit, we were checking in after every single chapter because it's so complex and well written, and it's really, there's a lot to unpack. Basically, if you like The Handmaid's Tale, this is one for you. It is speculative fiction, and it's basically following the world as women are developing, or rather society is discovering that women are having these skins, they call them, kind of on their chest, and it's an organ type thing that helps them control electricity so they can shock people, and it explores power dynamics and social shifts because of this, and it's really smart and poignant and well written, and I enjoyed almost every single point of view that we get to see. And the concept obviously is really compelling. The execution is great because it's kind of written as this historical recount type thing from a male author living in this futuristic society that is formed after the events of the book. So it was a page turner. I was very captivated, but I will say, while it's trying to do the whole globalized view, it's not necessarily doing that too well. I think the perspectives of women that are necessarily from the Western culture are really simplistic or lacking. I think it's not quite as diverse as I would like to say it should be. I loved what this had in it, and I thought it was really smart. But also I wish we would have had more. It's trans-exclusionary. It's, yeah, I will link an article by my friend that I think I've seen, yes, on globalized kind of dystopians or whatever, because I think she's so poignant and so smart, and I keep thinking about that article. I think I've read it like 10 times at this point. So, and then I read We Are Young by Kath Clark. This follows a girl living in this town where basically this group of teenagers was in a car crash, and they all but one died, and no one knows what they were doing together, because you never would have guessed they're friends, because one is like emo, preppy, whatever, one's a nerd, one's a jock, blah blah blah, one's like an it girl, and it was fine. I enjoyed reading it. I appreciated what it tried to do in order to bring attention to mental health and mental health issues, and the way these things can be really unexpected and hit everyone, even though you wouldn't guess, yada yada. But also, I'm like, it kind of feels like you're using mental health as a plot device, plot twist. So, I don't know. Yeah, this is my favorite thing at this point, so don't even judge me. I read China Rich Girlfriend by Kevin Kwan. This is the second book in the Crazy Rich Asian series. I have third one on hold. I'm still excited. It basically follows Rachel and Nick after the events of Crazy Rich Asians. I don't want to say too much, like spoilers, but it's hilarious, it's over the top. Again, it had some mentions of mental illness that I didn't quite appreciate. I didn't quite like how that was done. But I enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed the first one, in the sense that I was flying through it. I am very engaged in all these characters' lives, and here we are. So I saw this book on Twitter and everyone's saying that it's the worst thing ever, and I'm like, there's no way it can be that bad. Like, I'm expecting it to be bad, but it can't be that bad. It's Adultolescence by Gabby Hanna. She's a YouTuber known as The Gabby Show. This is a modern poetry type thing. It's so bad. It's so bad. There are a few good poems in here that have good ideas or good pieces or something. So I would have given it more than 1 star, which is what I gave it. Except, hold on. First of all, it starts with the acknowledgements where she's thanking her POC editor or agent or something, and then she's like, and thank you for never making me say your last name, which is an ethnic name, out loud. I'm like, okay, let's move on. And then there are references about how a lot of these poems, I can't even call them poems, are fillers because she had to meet her deadline. And then she's thanking Shane Dawson in the acknowledgements as well for putting her in touch with people. So this is a money grab, and there's no respect from her to people as readers. And I'm like, you know what? You don't care? I don't care. Like, I'm giving you my time. You could at least not make a joke out of it. On a brighter note, I finally read Tangle and Brine by Deidre Sullivan. This is so good. I will link my video down below that I made last week, or it depends when you're seeing this. Yes, but this is one of my newfound favorites. It's basically a collection of feminist retellings. They're all short stories, and they're very dark and twisted, and it's a lot about women regaining agency in their stories, and it's a good time. I don't want to say much more because, like, there are so many books in this wrap-up, but I will link my video down below in case you want to hear me talk some more. And I love Deidre as a person, so it's all great. And prepare yourself, because everyone is like, what? When I mentioned this, I then started Grey by Pete Wentz of Fall Out Boy fame. I know. Again, this has a co-author called James Montgomery. So it follows, you guessed it, a musician who's like having a shit time. And I only got like 50 pages, and I was not enjoying this. I was in a reading slump. It wasn't pulling me in, so I decided to just DNF it. It's like, first of all, I'm just tired of male characters who can't get their shit together because they think they're the shit. But also they're like, I don't know how to even explain it, but I was not having a good time. And also I was slightly uncomfortable because, like, just feels slightly autobiographical. So I just feel like I'm reading something that I shouldn't be, and it's weird. But the writing style isn't particularly bad. Like, I picked this up because I knew Pete Wentz was really strong as a lyricist, so I thought I could trust his writing in prose. So it's as emo as one would expect, and it's so dramatic and dark. But also, you know what, you need to learn to let books go sometimes, and that is fine. And then I needed a really nice, quick, easy beach read, so I finally read Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson. This basically follows this girl whose best friend goes missing, kind of, except she sends a list of things for this girl to do. So she tries to check them off, and then she makes new friends, yada yada. It's a very fun, really cute story. I love Morgan Matson. I thought this was like super quick to get through. It was really easy. I really liked the characters. It was just a good time. It was a great book. And then I listened to an audiobook. I listened to Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. In case you don't know, this is pretty much my favorite book of all time. It's so good. And I managed to get a proof of the sequel that's coming out later this year from work. So I wanted to reread Strange the Dreamer first, but I couldn't excuse myself to make such a commitment because it's a book. You know what I'm saying? So the audiobook seemed like a happy middle, so that's what I did, and I love it very much, and I'm very excited for Muse of Nightmares, except I'm trying to find other books to keep myself busy with because I'm not emotionally prepared to get into any field. And then, naturally, we have some good old comic books to end on. I read Batwoman Volume 1 Hydrology and then Elegy. These are really dark because, like, DC, the artwork is really interesting. Like the red pops, it pops, especially with the grays and all that, and the surrounding panels. It's a really real cute. It's real cute. But the story is a bit lacking. I will nevertheless continue on with the series because I'm hooked and like support female superheroes, you know. I then read volume 1 of Fables, Legends in Exile. So this is basically a story about fairy tale type characters living in our world, and there is a murder investigation where Snow White's sister is suspected to have been murdered or something. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's wild. It's very Once Upon a Time-esque. So I really enjoyed it. I'm compelled. It wasn't my favorite thing of all time, but I am compelled. And then we have my 2 favorite things in the world. First off, we have volume 1 of Mockingbird. I can explain. I love Mockingbird. I love Bobby Morse. I love the artwork in this. I love the story. I love Mockingbird. It was very woke. It was real fun. I really enjoyed it. It's like my new favorite thing. I really need volume 2. I think it's just these 2. I think it was a limited run. I don't know. That's very sad. But this is so good. Would highly, highly recommend. And then speaking of things that are my favorite, I read Wonder Woman volume 2, year 1. Complicated. I know. And that's by Greg Rucka. I really love this. And you get to see Barbara and Minerva and Wendy first form their bond. Because in the first volume, you just kind of see Barbara as Cheetah, and it's a lot of drama, but it's so good. It is so pure, and I just love Wonder Woman. And honestly, I wish we get to see this kind of version of them, or as much of it as we could. And Wonder Woman 84, I don't know. Alas, these are all things that I have read in the month of June, and I would love to know if you've read any of these, or what your favorite book of the month was, and I shall see you some other time.